Hello everyone, and welcome back to Maytech. Today we have the WeCreat Lumos here with us. We're going to test it out. We're going to do a bunch of projects, including engraving a baseball bat, coaster, some hat tags. We're going to test out both the slider and the rotary attachment. But just before we jump into this, if you can please subscribe to the channel, it really helps things out. All right, let's jump into this video.
Let's start by having a quick look at what the Lumos comes with. We'll only look at the standalone machine right now, and we'll check out both the rotary and the slider individually later in the video. So with this machine, you do get a power supply and all the cables needed to run it. You get a length of exhaust tubing and all the tools needed for setup and assembly. And you also get some quick start guides. You do get these screw-in alignment guides. These guides can be screwed anywhere in the working panel of the machine. There is also a cutting panel that can replace the normal panel in the machine for cutting materials. This machine also comes with a nice sample pack of different engraving and cutting materials. This includes some metal pendants, some sample wood, and some vinyl sheets. So basically, you get everything you need to get going right out of the box. So the first thing to note is this is a dual laser module machine. It has both a 3-watt infrared laser and a 10-watt blue laser in it. Having these two different laser types built into the Lumos allows it to engrave a multitude of different materials. The Lumos is also engineered to be portable, so you can easily move it around your shop or even bring it to markets with you. It has this nice retractable safety hood here, so you can easily load materials into your machine. It also has this nice working area plate here with a variety of threaded holes. This allows you to thread your guides anywhere you need them. You can also remove the plate and replace it with a cutting plate, or you can use the machine with the plate removed completely, allowing you to laser engrave onto whatever surface the machine is sitting on. Moving on to the back of the machine, here you have a manual focus dial. And below it, you also have a button so you can autofocus the machine. Below that, you have your ports for your rotary and your slider. And next to that are the ports for your USB and your power supply. Over here on the other side, you do have a power button. And in the middle is the exhaust port for the machine. So let's jump into testing this machine out. We're going to start testing the Lumos by engraving and cutting some 1/16 basswood plywood. This is typically a great wood for laser engraving as it holds detail well and cuts nice. Now I've already pre-imported the image I want to engrave into the WeCreat Make It software, and I've went ahead and pre-drawn the rectangle that'll be used as the guide to cut the image out of the plywood. So the first thing we're going to do is go up here and hit the autofocus button. This will both focus the machine and use the inbuilt camera to take a picture of whatever material is on the laser bed. As you can see on our canvas that we now have a picture of the piece of plywood. This feature allows us to easily align the image onto the material for engraving and cutting. Let's now look at the settings we're going to use. I'm going to engrave this using the power of 100, a DPI of 300, and a dot duration of 300. And for processing settings, I am going to have bidirectional scanning turned on. I will also have it turned on for all my future tests whenever it's available. For the cut line, my power will be at 100. It'll be at a speed of 7. I'll be doing 2 passes, and I'll have enhanced cutting turned on. I'll be using the blue light module to both engrave and cut this plywood. So I'm just now going to take the image and center it within the cutting square. Before I start engraving and cutting this project, I will go down here and select the rectangle framing option. This will project a rectangle onto the material, allowing us to preview the area in which the lasering is going to happen. So I have the plywood material sitting here on a cutting plate, and I'm going to go ahead and show you what the framing square looks like when it's turned on. So here's the framing square, And you can see that it outlines the area where the engraving and cutting is going to happen, which is handy for making sure everything lines up. Let's go ahead and start this test. Here on the right, we have the finished results, and I also did another test with 1/8 Baltic birch plywood here on the left. Now if I take the basswood sample and tilt it here away from the glare of the light, you can see that both the detail and the contrast turned out quite nice. And looking at the cutting edge here, you could see that the Lumos had no problem cutting through this 1/16 material. The detail on the Baltic birch plywood also came out quite nicely, although the engraving was a little lighter. The Lumos also had no issues cutting through this thicker 1/8 material. Each one of these images is 106 millimeters squared, and it took the Lumos about 15 minutes to engrave each one and about 2 minutes to cut them. Next up, we are going to look at these aluminum tags. These come in both a bare aluminum option and also a colored anodized aluminum option. Either type is great for your laser engraver, as they engrave really quickly and hold detail well. These tags are a great option if you're looking for something that you can engrave on the spot. You can easily process these while your customer is waiting, either in your store or if you're out at a market. For this test, we're going to do an example dog tag. Now I've already went ahead and imported the image art. I'm going to go ahead and take that and align it on top of the preview that the Lumos gives me. Just a quick tip here, if you go and click Ignore for Processing when the image is selected, the image will go semi-transparent, allowing you to align it onto your material easier. Now to make sure your image engraves correctly, you do want to make sure that the invert option is selected up here. As a general rule, you'll want to invert your image anytime you're taking a coating off an object and the surface underneath is lighter. Now I will be using the red light option to engrave these. For the colored tags, you can use either laser type, but the red light will give you lighter markings with finer detail. Let's now move on to the settings. For the image of the dog, I'll be using the power of 100, a DPI of 300, and a dot duration of 250. For the text, I'll be using the power of 100, the speed of 400, and the line density of 150. Now let's go ahead and do a framing of this. I'm going to go ahead and use the outer contour framing option this time, and I'll show you just what that looks like right now. So with the outer contour framing, we're going to get something that looks like this instead of the rectangle. This option precisely outlines our image, showing us exactly where it's going to engrave onto the tag. So here's the finished anodized aluminum tags. And as you can see, as I bring this up to the camera, the Lumos did a great job with both the details on the dog and the sharpness of the text. Now each one of these tags only took about 20 seconds each. So like I said, they would be a great item for doing on the fly for your customers. Next up, we are going to look at engraving these hat clips. These hat clips are a relatively new product on the market. They're basically just a painted steel clip. We'll be using the Lumos to remove the paint and expose the steel underneath. They have no problem clipping to the brims of most hats, and you can engrave the top, the side, and even the bottom of each clip. On the top of my clip, I'll be engraving this fishing hook logo. I'll then engrave the words hooked on the side of the clip. I've already went ahead and taken a picture of the work area with the built-in camera on the Lumos, and I centered the logo that I want to engrave onto the top of the clip. For settings, you can use either the red or blue laser to engrave this. The blue laser will give you more of a bare metal look, while the red laser will give you more of a lighter engraving that stands out more. I prefer the way that the red laser looks, so that's what I'm going to use for this project. For settings, we are going to use a power of 100, a speed of 225, and a line density of 200. Before I start this project, I'm going to go ahead and do an outer contour framing of it. On the laser bed here, you could see that I've used one of the provided guides to keep the clip in place. I also have a small screwdriver bit under the clip to help keep it horizontal. Here's what the outer contour framing looks like, and it does a great job showing you exactly where the engraving is going to be placed. We're now going to go ahead and do the engraving on the side of the clip. As you can see, I've reorientated the clip and used the built-in Lumos camera to align the words onto the side. For settings, I'll be using a power of 100, a speed of 225, and a line density of 200. Once again, I'm just using the provided guide and a screwdriver bit to keep the clip vertically in place. Here's what the outer contour framing looks like on the side of the clip. So that looks good to me. Let's go ahead and engrave it. So here are the finished clips, and I really like the way these turned out. So I'll definitely be doing more of these in the future. It took the Lumos about 34 seconds to engrave the top of the clip, and the text on the side only took 5 seconds. So these are another great option if you're looking for something that you can quickly personalize for your clients. These would be perfect for something you could do at craft shows or at markets. Next up, we're going to test doing some color engraving on stainless steel. I'll be using these stainless steel business cards for the color engraving. Now these cards do have a protective film on them that you need to remove before you start engraving them. I'm going to engrave each one of these playing card images on a different stainless steel card, and I'm going to attempt to do the color fills that you see here on the screen with color laser engraving. The WeCreat Lumos is one of the few machines I've seen where you have the ability to set up color engraving within the software. Before you start color engraving, you do have to go through the calibration process. WeCreat already has a great video on how to do that on their website, so you'll want to watch that first before you attempt to color engrave. Once you've done the calibration test, you can turn on the color engraving option over here, and you'll need to enter in the focal distance number that you derived from the color engraving test. Mine is 235, but it will depend on the thickness of your material. You'll also want to make sure that your laser light source is set to red light. Now you will get the settings for each one of your colors from the color matrix that you did in the color laser test. Once the settings for each color is set up, we can go ahead and engrave these images. So here's the finished results of the color engraving. As you can see, the color engraving definitely did work out. The colors do slightly change depending on the angle of light. Each one of these cards did take 20 minutes, so it's not the fastest process, and something that'll probably work better for smaller stainless steel jewelry. I definitely see how you could do some cool items with this technique, like some customized pendants. Moving on, we're going to test the Lumos on engraving some slate rock. These are coasters I'm using here, but you can get slate in a variety of different sizes. A quick tip to make your slate engravings stand out and contrast better is to give them a clear coat before you start engraving. I like to use lacquer as it doesn't interfere with the engraving process and dries quickly. I've selected this dinosaur fossil image to engrave onto the coaster. As the image already depicts rock, it should engrave onto the slate really nicely. My image here is inverted already, but if your image hadn't already been inverted when you imported it, you will want to go up here and check invert on the filters. This is because on material like slate, the area you laser will turn white, not black. Now I'm going to go and select the ignore for processing option. This makes the image semi-transparent and easy for me to center on top of the camera preview of the slate. Once I have things lined up, I'll want to make sure I uncheck ignore for processing. Slate is another one of those materials that you can engrave with either the red light or the blue light. In this case, I found the blue light will give you a brighter engraving, while the red light will give you more detail. Because this image is heavy on the detail, I'm going to go ahead and select the red light. For settings, I'm going to use a power of 100, a DPI of 300, and a dot duration of 350. Here's the finished engraving of the Slate coaster. I'm just going to try to get the glare from the lights off of it, and as you can see, the results turned out quite awesome. I really like the way this one turned out, particularly on how all the detail in the image was captured. The 3D effect that is given both to the fossil and the surrounding rock is pretty cool. Now I forgot to put the timer in the video of the engraving, but each one of these coasters did take about 10 minutes each. So being that they're not super time intensive, I'll definitely be doing more of these. Let's now have a look at the rotary attachment for the WeCreat Lumos. With the rotary kit, you of course get the rotary itself, and this is a tilt rotary. You get the base plate to attach it to the machine. You get a support stand with multiple different adapters for supporting longer or heavier items. You get a whole variety of different adapters. These will let you mount just about any circular object to the rotary. You get a screwdriver and some screws to mount the rotary to the machine. You also get a bubble level and a measuring tape to make sure the machine is adjusted correctly. So we are going to test out this rotary by etching some of these shot glasses. Anytime you're etching glass with this style of diode laser, you do need to paint the glass black in order for it to work. Now most black paint will work, but my favorite to use is black tempera paint. This is because it easily washes off with soap and water after you're done. By far the easiest way I've found to apply the paint to the glass is to mix it 50-50 with water and put it into one of these spray bottles. You then want to spray 2 to 3 coats onto the glass, letting each coat dry before applying the next one. You can use a hairdryer to quickly dry the paint in between coats if you want. Once you're done, you should get a nice even application of paint, just like this. To mount the shot glass to the rotary, I'm going to use the silicone lined screw adapters that came with it. These simply just screw right into the chuck. To attach the shot glass, you simply place it in between the pins, and then just tighten the rotary. Once you get into the software, the first thing you're going to want to do is to make sure laser cylindrical is turned on, and that will change your canvas to something that looks like this. I'm then going to take the image that I've already pre-prepared and place it onto the shot glass exactly where I want it to etch. Once the image placement is set up, it's important to go up here and to set either the perimeter or the diameter of the object you'll be engraving. Once those measurements are entered, you can hit the 3D preview to get a movable preview of what the object is going to engrave like. For settings, I'm going to use the power of 100, a speed of 200, and a line density of 120. So I've went ahead and mounted the rotary to the Lumos's base plate using these two screws here. The last thing we want to do before we start engraving is to do a framing test to make sure the image is going to engrave within the area we want it to. And you can see the blue purplish light here tracing the area where the engraving is going to happen. So here are the finished shot glasses I did. Each one only took about 1 minute and 45 seconds. So this is another project that can be done on the quick with the Lumos. The etching themselves look great, they're clear and crisp, and I had absolutely no issue with either test. We are now going to move on to testing the slide extension for the Lumos. The purpose of the slide extension is to increase the engraving length of your projects. In this case, you can increase your engravings up to 4 times. Now the slide does come with everything you need to mount it to the machine. This also includes a bracket to allow the rotary to mount to it, which I'll show you later on in the video. One of the great features of this slide is it comes with graduated measurement numbers on the top, bottom, and side. These correlate exactly to the measurements within the software, allowing you to easily place your engravings right where you want them. It also has these sliding guides here, allowing you to lock your projects into place. These guides are also spring-loaded, so you can clip thinner material under them, keeping it precisely in place. I'm going to be using the slide extension to engrave the length of these cutting boards. Normally you wouldn't be able to engrave such a long surface with the Lumos because of its small work area, but attaching the slide will allow us to work on this much longer piece. In the WeCreat Make It software, the first thing you want to do is to make sure the auto slider option is enabled. You then want to go down and click Initialize. You will now see that you have a much longer canvas, and the Lumos will have taken a snapshot of the front of your project to make things easier for you to line up. Now I'm going to use the ruler guides here in the software on the top and the bottom to align this text approximately where I want it onto the cutting board. Because this is bamboo, I'll be using the blue light laser module, and my settings will be a power of 100, a speed of 250, and a line density of 100. Once everything is set up, I will of course be doing a frame test here to make sure my engraving is placed where I want it. Framing will cause the purplish light to move within a rectangle, showing you your engraving area. So the whole engraving took just under 15 minutes, which is definitely decent for such a large area. And as you can see, the results turned out pretty good, considering bamboo is notorious for uneven engravings. Last up, we are going to test the slider-rotary combination. As you can see, the rotary will actually mount to the slider, allowing you to engrave long cylindrical objects. Now this is a feature unique to the Lumos, as I have not seen it in any other laser engraver. I'll be using this wood baseball bat to test this rotary slide combination. This is something you would not be able to do with the rotary of most lasers, as the bat is too long to fit inside most machines. Now to set this up in the software, you first want to make sure Auto Slide plus Rotary is selected, and you then want to go ahead and click Initialize. Once that's done, you'll see a new canvas setup, and the Make It software will have taken a snapshot of the front of your project so you can easily align your engraving image. Next, you want to make sure the diameter of the object you're engraving is set to the right measurement. Now I'm going to go ahead and align my graphic to the front of the bat using the preview image that the Lumos provided for me. Once it's all lined up, we can do a preview of the engraving in the 3D preview. For settings, I will be using the blue light module. I'll be engraving at a power of 100, a speed of 150, and a line density of 100. Now I've went ahead and I've mounted the rotary slide combination to the Lumos, and I've also attached the bat to the rotary. Now I've also went ahead and added this support, which is really important to use for these longer items. Now let's go ahead and do a framing test to make sure this is going to engrave where we want it to. And as you can see, the dot of light on the bat shows us the boundary area of our engraving. The engraving of this bat did take longer than I would have liked at 110 minutes. This is because there isn't a bidirectional engraving option for the rotary slide combination yet. Once WeCreat adds that, it should cut the engraving time in half. I did darken the engraving by adding some black water-based stain to it. I then sanded off the excess after it was dry. This made the engraving really pop out. I then finished the whole bat with some Osmo Poly-X oil. I really liked the way this finished bat turned out, and it's definitely my favorite project that I've done with the Lumos so far. So now that we've put the WeCreat Lumos through all this testing, let's talk about my conclusion on this machine. We'll look at the downside first, and that's that this machine does not have the largest work area, and it also isn't the most powerful machine. So if you're looking to do larger projects or you want to do a lot of cutting, you'll want to look at a larger, more powerful machine like the WeCreat Vision Pro. Now with the downside out of the way, I do have to say that this machine is definitely a very versatile machine. It will allow you to engrave a ton of different materials, and the quality of engraving that it's able to produce is excellent. So who's this machine for? I found the Lumos to be easy to set up and use, which would make it a good choice for someone who's just getting into laser engraving. The size also makes it a perfect choice for someone who doesn't have a lot of room within their workshop or their crafting area. And it's also a great choice for someone who needs to be portable, who needs a machine that they can bring to markets with them, or even something that they can move around the shop easily.
So that's the video for today, folks. If you have any questions about the Lumos, please make sure to leave it in the comments and I will get to it as soon as possible. If you've liked this video, please make sure to give it a like. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hit that notification bell to make sure you stay updated on all my latest videos. All right, we will see you all again next time.